We need greater investment all across the board. So we need even more, even with these record investments in renewables, we need even more because renewables has a very pivotal role to play in the transition. But having said that, we also need to make sure that we keep prices and volatility in check, and that requires investment in hydrocarbons. Yeah. And I know it may seem odd for the head of an international energy organization to be advocating for more investment in hydrocarbons, but I'm worried that if the public starts to connect high prices and volatility with the transition, our climate progress, we're going to be in big trouble and lose public support. And then we're undermined any kind of action on climate change. If we don't have the public support, it's not going to happen. And so therefore, I think just to meet demand, what we've said in our reports is that the world has to invest about $500 billion a year just to meet demand, let alone expansions in population growth and changes in income in different parts of the world as lower class becomes middle class and wants vehicles and different luxuries in life. All of this requires a lot of energy, and so it's going to be important that we keep investing in oil and gas. And the other part of this is the IEF has this technology report that they updated in December, and essentially what it says is it's a great synopsis of the energy transition and what's required. It says renewables, wind and solar and hydro and other clean energy can get us about halfway to meeting our climate goals. The other half has to come from new technologies that are not commercialized or even envisioned yet. Fusion would be one of them, certainly hydrogen, CCUS are two others. So until they are perfected and commercialized and cost competitive, we need to keep investing in oil and gas because there is no alternative right now. And so this is the reality of the situation. There's a lot of aspirational goals that are talked about with regard to the transition, but I think we have to deal in the real world. And the real world is we have to keep investing in hydrocarbons in order to keep making progress on climate change.
وبالنسبة للخطوة التي اتخذتها المملكة العربية السعودية وروسيا وغيرها من الدول لتمديد الخفض الطوعي أو اتخاذ إجراءات لخفض طوعي إضافي، كيف تقيم هذه الخطوة من ناحية أثرها على الأسعار هذه السنة أو على المدى القريب وفيما بعد؟
Well, I think the moves on the voluntary cuts by Saudi Arabia and Russia now are designed to impact the paper markets and sort of this negative sentiment weighing on markets that we're going to be in a recession and that will impact demand and demand will be reduced. And so that's what they're focused on. I think the fundamentals are quite strong and very healthy right now. And everyone is forecasting, even OPEC is forecasting much greater demand in the second half of this year. In terms of the cuts themselves, I mean, the Saudi cuts, I think, were widely anticipated. Not much has changed since the June date. The Russian one was a surprise, but I think it's being met with some healthy skepticism because they haven't really been so successful on their previous pledges, but this one is focused on exports. So it should be, for the most part, more trackable and verifiable. But remember, Russia is a big pipeline exporter, so some of that we're never going to be able to see. But I think there'll be more educated estimates of what's going on. And if the market starts to see real cuts from Russia, that'll have an impact. And also the cuts that were announced in April by OPEC and these voluntary cuts by Saudi Arabia, you're going to start seeing that show up in reductions in inventory data. So this is going to be real hard data and evidence for the market that fundamentals are stronger. And look, I mean, even in China, there's been a lot of mixed reports on manufacturing data. But if you look at imports of oil and also demand in China, yes, it's not been meeting super high expectations, but it's still record highs. Same in India. India's sales of gasoline, diesel, and natural gas are 10% above where they were a year ago, again soaring. So those two countries combined mean 2 more million barrels a day in demand the second half of this year. So we're going to be in a very tight situation. We have to, and I think the April meeting, the very special April meeting that was held, OPEC is meeting twice a year now, but I think that shows that they're flexible. So if they have to step in and do something, they'll do it. But there is this end of the year OPEC meeting.